Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolfe Pit. If you're a seafood lover like me, a fried or broiled seafood platter, sometimes called a captain's platter, a fisherman's platter, etc., is what you order when you go out to a seafood restaurant. But seafood platters vary by restaurant, and you don't always get what you want unless you're lucky enough to find a seafood restaurant where you can create your own platter. As we all know, depending on the restaurant you go to, it can be like playing the lottery. Your $30 seafood platter could be great, or it could be awful and a waste of money. That's why you should try to make your own personalized seafood feast at home if you can, whether you want it all deep fried, broiled, or pan-seared. This way you control the quality and make it with your choice of seafood, and you make it how you like it. But there lies another problem. Depending on where you live, good seafood may not be available, or the seafood that is available isn't very good, or it's farm-raised, or it's a product of another country. But thanks to today's sponsor, sizzlefish.com, you can get wild-caught U.S. seafood shipped to your doorstep anywhere in the continental United States. Everything is individually vacuum sealed, which I love, because some places will vacuum seal several servings in the same bag, which means you might have to thaw out and cook more than you really need. There's a link to sizzlefish.com and a coupon code in the video description for 10% off your first order. So let's make our own customized seafood platter with a 4-ounce wild-caught Chesapeake Bay rockfish fillet, also known as striped bass, a 4-ounce fillet of wild-caught Alaskan halibut, 2.5 ounces of peeled and deveined wild Gulf shrimp. Now this package comes in a 5-ounce package with 8 shrimp, but I couldn't wait and ate 4 of them before I made this meal. And then finally, my favorite, 4 ounces of these beautiful dry-packed sea scallops, which are caught off the coast of Nantucket Island. Dry scallops are key. If you've ever seen scallops sitting in a bowl in the seafood section of your local grocery store, sitting in a milk-like liquid, those are called wet scallops. And they have stuff added to them, which means they can sell them a little bit cheaper, but you're paying for water and the scallop. If you buy dry scallops, you're paying for the scallop and only the scallop, and the taste is like night and day. And if you buy frozen scallops, read the ingredients. If you see any phosphates in the ingredient list, then they're going to be wet scallops, and they're not going to be nearly as good as dry scallops. So let's get this beautiful seafood ready to cook. And my motto with good seafood is to kiss it, which means to keep it simple, stupid. So we're going to simply season the seafood with kosher salt and black pepper. But first we scored the skin of the rockfish to help keep it from curling up. Season both sides of the rockfish, halibut, scallops, and the shrimp. Also, I didn't mention this before, but we've patted all the seafood dry with paper towels, which will really help with the sear and give it a nice crust. Once all the seafood seasoned the way you like it, add some oil to your skillet over medium-high heat, and then give it a good swirl. And then once the oil is hot and begins to shimmer, add the rockfish fillet skin side down. Then gently press it down with your spatula for about 10 seconds. This will make all that wonderful skin get contact with the skillet and help it get crispy without curling up. All seafood is very delicate and it cooks very quickly, and you gotta be super careful not to overcook it. After the rockfish fillet is cooked 1.5 minutes, give it a flip. And look at that beautiful crispy skin. And then let it cook meat side down for another 1.5 to 2 minutes. After a total of 3.5 minutes, our rockfish fillet was ready. Remove the rockfish, set it aside, and let's get our wild-caught Alaskan halibut fillet done. And I didn't think we needed to score the skin on this, but you'll see as soon as it hits the hot pan, the skin automatically tightens up and tries to curl. So again, just hold your spatula on it for 10 seconds. And with this being a little bit thicker fillet, we're going to cook it slightly longer. So on the skin side, we're going to let it go for 1.5 minutes. And let it go for another 90 seconds on the meat side. Then sear the sides of the halibut fillet for 30 seconds each. After a total of 4 minutes, our Alaskan halibut fillet is done. Take it off and let it rest with the rockfish. And now I have these beautiful Nantucket Island dry scallops. So sear these on one side for 1.5 minutes. And then flip them and let them go for another 1.5 minutes. And then after a total of 3 minutes, our scallops are ready. Last but not least, we have our peeled and deveined wild-caught Gulf shrimp. Put these down in a skillet for 1 minute per side. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Where's the butter? Patience, my people, patience. You, the people, know I always have a stick of butter in my back pocket. So we're going to add a half a stick of butt-warm butter to the skillet. Followed by some homegrown, fresh minced, store-bought garlic right out of the jar. And then season with just a little bit of salt and pepper. And no, I didn't clarify the butter. If you prefer to use clarified butter, go right ahead. But Paula Dean and I aren't real picky when it comes to butter, as long as there's a lot of it. Now keep the garlic butter warm and plate up all the beautiful wild-caught seafood next to a random frozen Phillips crab cake I found in my freezer, which they're actually not that bad in a pinch. Along with the random crab cake, add a ramekin of Food Lion coleslaw, which I normally don't like pre-made store-bought salads, but Food Lion coleslaw to me tastes like KFC coleslaw. And last but not least, you can't have a seafood platter without some frozen store-bought hush puppies. Don't judge me, people. I've admitted plenty of times that I'm lazy, so sometimes using prepared foods and frozen foods come in handy to plate up with actual good food. At least my lemons were grown on my lemon tree, located on aisle 1. Now to me, this seafood platter looks every bit as good as a seafood platter from a restaurant. And you know when you get a broiled seafood platter in most restaurants, it comes out swimming in hot butter. Well, that hot butter continues to cook the seafood and ends up overcooking it and makes it mushy. That's why I like to serve the butter separately. Give it all a good spritz of fresh lemon juice, and then we're ready to dive in. I tried the Alaskan halibut first. I've only had it once before, but I do remember it being delicious. But it was battered and deep fried, so anything battered and deep fried is going to be delicious. Now it certainly looks perfectly cooked and flaky. So into my fish trap it went. And the meat of the halibut is pretty firm and very mild in flavor with a subtle sweetness to it. And of course when you dip it in butter, it's even better. It reminds me a little bit of grouper, but firmer. But it's not nearly as tasty as my all-time favorite grouper. But don't get me wrong, it's delicious and great for someone like Mrs. Wolfe who isn't really crazy about fish. I cooked another piece of the halibut off camera for her, and she loved it, and she's not a huge fish eater. The only other fish she'll eat is cod. Now if I didn't mention it, grouper is my all-time favorite fish, but rockfish is my second favorite. So we got a little piece of the rockfish with a little piece of skin. And I've got to say, I don't mean to toot my own horn. That really looks good and moist. Rockfish is delicious on its own. No butter is required. But the thing I like about rockfish and grouper is they actually taste like fish. I know what you're saying. Of course it does. It's fish. But to me, cod and halibut don't really taste like fish. But the rockfish and grouper have a nice mild fish flavor to them. And this piece of rockfish was delicious. Now my taste buds were already happy, but the scallops were up next and had my mouth watering. And I know scallops are great on their own, but that garlic butter was getting lonely and needed some attention. So into the butter the scallop went. and then directly into my face orifice it went. And at that point, my taste buds were having a full-fledged party. But these scallops were perfectly cooked, melted in your mouth, and were super sweet. That's why I call them candy from the sea. Next, I shanked a plump Gulf shrimp like a prison snitch. And again, they were perfectly cooked, tender, and delicious. Now, even though I put a frozen crab cake on the plate, Sizzlefish does have crab cakes, but I didn't get any this time, so maybe I'll get some for a future video. But until then, I enjoyed this mediocre Phillips crab cake and my store-bought slaw and hush puppies. So here's my thoughts on mail-order seafood from Sizzlefish.com. There was plenty of dry ice left to keep the seafood completely frozen and not partially frozen like some other mail-order seafood companies do. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I like how everything is individually packed per serving, which allows you to thaw and eat only what you want. Price-wise, it does cost more than what you're going to pay in your normal grocery store, and maybe even some seafood markets. But you got to put everything into perspective, like the convenience of the product, the quality of the product, knowing exactly where the seafood was caught in the United States, and the fact that you're supporting an American company. With all that considered, I do feel the cost is worth it. Just like the old saying goes, you get what you pay for. Thank you all very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and share it with your family and friends, and I'll see you soon.